Welcome to DevaTree's Love Who You Are podcast. If you're new to DevaTree, we certify meditation teachers and offer online courses in yoga for anxiety and teaching yoga to children. DevaTree's been a leader in the wellness industry for almost 30 years. I'm your host, Candice Lapointe. Join me as I connect with insightful guests who share the surprising places their meditation, yoga, and wellness journey have taken them. Navigating the human experience can feel perilous at times, but our guests share how embracing their radical uniqueness and applying self-compassion can change everything. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this inaugural episode of the Love Who You Are podcast. In this first episode, I'm joined by Tamika Schilbe Cole, who's DevaTree's co-founder and the lead trainer in our meditation teacher training program. I left this conversation feeling very inspired as Tamika talked about how we're all powerful, creative beings with the power to speak to and also receive guidance from our higher selves. Tamika shares her meditation journey, her resistance to meditation, and also what her practice has actually evolved into. I was touched by her real life stories, and you'll also see in our conversation how she talks about positive risk taking and how it's helped her to make progress even when her boots are shaking. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do too. Tamika, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here on the Love Who You Are podcast as the first guest. I can't think of anyone else better to be interviewing for the first episode, and so I want to say thank you and welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's so exciting to be here with you on this first podcast. It's a landmark moment. Feels auspicious.
Yeah, and I know that we've had many conversations in the past about doing this. And so first and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you because I was reflecting earlier today in preparation, and it feels so good to have people in your corner that believe in you and trust that you'll do a good job in this. So thanks for being along for the ride. And I'm so excited to get into conversation with you and chat about all the things. So let's get to it.
Yeah, and you're welcome. It's easy to believe in you.
Oh, gosh. Thanks, Tamika. I think since this podcast is going to be geared towards yoga and meditation and general well-being, can you kind of give us a little bit of a background about how you got into this and what set you out on this journey? I mean, we can go on and on about all of the different things that you've accomplished and been successful in regards to yoga and meditation. And I know, anyways, that it's a lifelong journey. So if you wanted to just give us a little bit of a background, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Right back to the beginning. Well, it was around 1992 when I started meditation, and that was in my class at King's College with Dr. Joe Bloom. He was our professor, and it was a social work class. I think it might have been group work or something, but he asked us to meditate in these small groups, and we got into these groups, and I was the only person in that group that was willing to do it. Everybody was like, let's skip this part and get to the written work. Let's skip this part of the assignment and get to the real stuff that we have to do as a group. And so I think that was 1992. It was at King's College anyway. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I think that when I was a kid, there was a lot of spiritual stuff around me. And I would say that journey kind of started way back then. But my first meditation experience was actually as a social worker at King's College in a class. And that meditation experience, I realized as soon as I closed my eyes with an intention to close my eyes for something other than sleep, that something opened up in me. Like it felt an instant power that I felt connected to. And so I did convince my group to do that meditation. And that was my first time meditating. In terms of yoga, I tried a class with a friend of mine, and she told me she thought I'd really like it. And she asked me to come to a yoga class. This was years later. And I went to that class, and I remember being in that class at a time when I was going through a separation. My marriage was ending. And I remember thinking that it was better than sex. It was better than any great thing that I'd ever done. I was like, this yoga is like, there's so much pleasure involved in it. And it was just like the breathing, and it was a very conscious type of class. There was definitely workout elements, but it was a very conscious kind of class. And I knew in that moment that there was something that I would never let go of. That was my first class, and I was hooked. And I know not everyone is like that. Well, first of all, some of your listeners probably won't, yoga might not even be their thing, or it may have been their thing before and it might not be now, but not everybody gets hooked in the first experience. Like maybe you don't have the teacher that speaks to you, it's not your style, or maybe it's not the teacher, it's actually the methodology that they're using, or whatever it might be. But for me, it was in that first experience, both with meditation and with yoga.
Thank you. I know that's such a loaded question. Like, where did you start? And all of like, can you give us a brief example? And so I so appreciate that. I'm thinking about your comment and the resistance that everybody had at King's College in regards to this meditation. And this meditation, what would you call it, practice or offering that your teacher was hoping that you guys would do. And so I'm wondering, why do you think that? So like sometimes I'm experiencing people that have this resistance to meditation, and maybe thoughts about not being able to do it, or that it's not for them. And so I think that you kind of spoke a little bit about that resistance. And have you experienced that with your meditating groups that you've had or that you've taught?
Yeah, for sure. I have definitely experienced that as a teacher, guiding others, but also in my own practice. There's lots of, I would say, periods that I've gone through where I don't want to do it. And I know it's the best thing for me, but I don't want to do it. I think also a lot of people too have a lot going on that they're not maybe paying attention to in the emotional realm. And so stopping and going into that emotional realm, not just emotional realm, but feeling with what you're feeling, like sitting with your feelings and experiencing what is going on inside of you. You can't really shut it off necessarily, although I'll give you a caveat to that. But I think a lot of people, it's the running, doing, achieving, accomplishing to-do list part of their life that makes them feel alive. And also perhaps for some people, and this isn't everyone, but maybe there's an avoidance too of like, I don't want to slow down and feel this. It's easier to just keep running and going. Having said all that, I just had a conversation. I was on Shayna Hiller's Instagram recently, and she was saying that she meditated the first long time while she was meditating. It was escapism, and she was avoiding all of her feelings. She was avoiding her life. And I loved that she was so honest about that and open and shared about that, because I think there is maybe a certain draw for some people to meditation, because you can check out in a way once you get to I'm going to say, if you're a certain mental disposition or once you get to a certain ability with meditation, you might be able to just check out of your life. So the kids might need you, or you might need to be doing your taxes or something, but you can go meditate and just like leave it all behind. So I think it's really just different for everyone. I'm hoping I answered your question, which was a good one. Good question.
I'm thinking too that, this piece of avoidance or escapism, it really could be quite differing on like opposite sides of the coin. So interesting. And you've talked about how like your first experience with meditation, it just opened something up within you. And I think that that's maybe when people, or in my experience, when I first started meditating was, am I doing this right? It doesn't like, what's really happening? Is there something going on? What am I getting out of this? Like, there wasn't this great aha moment where I connected to the meditation process in itself. And so, um, I'm wondering if it's maybe hard to put into words, but I'm wondering what that feels like when you've achieved that sense of aha, or that you know that the meditation is like penetrating at a level that, is not so surface, or you're just sitting on the mat thinking about your next meal or the next email you have to send. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you
Yeah.
mean. But I
Hmm.
also think sometimes sitting on the mat and thinking about your next meal is still meditating. And so we've talked about this, probably you and I, before, but that definitely with beginners, it's okay to not, or not even just beginners, because that sort of sounds, makes it into a hierarchy, but it's okay to sit there and be totally distracted. You're probably still going to feel better when you get up from that meditation. And if you don't know and or can't see the direct results, look at the whole day or look at the next 24 or 48 hours. And I think a lot of people will find that there was something in that stillness that they maybe didn't know, maybe wasn't evident to them, but they probably still got something from that stillness, if you will. But we could talk about this in the meditation teacher training, is that slipstream. Like, it's almost like you get into the current. When you slip into that current, meaning that place where it feels like you're connected to everything that is, it's a very powerful place. It can feel like you're in touch with, like, the room can feel thick, like you're not alone anymore. There's beings or energies all around you that are there to support you. It can feel like bliss. It can feel like peace. It can feel like so many different things for different people. But also, as a, I guess, seasoned meditator, you can't go after that feeling, because you won't always get in the slipstream. Sometimes it's going to elude you, or you're just not gonna, it's just not the day for it. Like, it's just not going to come. And that's okay. And I think, similar to yoga, don't just give up if you've had one teacher or one practice or one class. There might be a different technique or a different teacher or a different experience that might actually hit home with you in a different way. I am not, for me, like, the strict sort of practices of, like, don't think anything. You want your mind to be blank. You want to release all thought. Those don't work for me because they stress me out. When I'm given more permission in a meditation practice, I feel free. Freedom is a really big value for me. And if I feel free, then I can relax enough with a teacher to go into a place that really has nothing to do with the teacher, because I feel safe.
So interesting. So, with that said, that you love the freedom and the less strict, sorry, meditations. What does your daily meditation practice look like? And what, when you speak of these kind of free meditative practices, what is that like? Do you just sit on your mat and walk in with an intention, or do you follow a particular methodology when you're trying to meditate? I'm just so interested
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. There are probably a couple of different answers to that question, but the first one about my own practice right now, and I do have a daily meditation practice. And as I say that, I almost like throw up in my mouth a little bit, because only because, it's sort of like the sage on high, like, I have a daily meditation practice. Like, I am quite aware that tomorrow that could change for whatever reason in my life or in my circumstances. I don't know. But so I don't say that from a haughty place, but for the last probably 5 years, I've had a really dedicated morning practice, and that involves asana, maybe 8 to 10 poses that are kind of like my medicine poses, the ones that really help me be mobile too. I'm aware of myself in my 50s, and I need that mobility, especially when a lot of my day is sitting at a desk. If I'm not
Mm.
walking my dog, I'm sitting at a desk probably, or sitting in the car. So it's I start in the morning with my morning practice with asana, and then my meditation right now is a couple of things. One, I'll tell you about the during the day practice that I do, but
Mhm.
one of them in the mornings, it's kind of communing with my guides. So if I do have fears and worries about life or about my day, or kind of wanting even the inside scoop, like what's the energy of this that I'm going into today? Like, what do I need to know? That's my meditation. So I ask a question and I go into that place of being receptive. And so it can be closing my eyes and meditating formally, but it also for me often involves whispering out loud and speaking. So I have this relationship with and this is, I guess, going off of like what you would think of typical meditation, going into what sounds like prayer, but it's not exactly that way for me. It's if it's a meditative time, it's like almost like we have a standing date. So we have this date every morning. I know there's a number of different energies that I've worked with since I was born. I can feel those energies. I've had some experiences where I've connected with those directly, but even my parents who are passed, sometimes I talk to them at that time. Both of them are on the other side. I mean, they're still my parents. They can help me on the other side. So there's a talking to them. There's a talking to my guides. There's that meditative aspect of closing my eyes and seeing what information comes in. I go through periods where I do automatic writing. So I'll ask a question on the page and then close my eyes and let the answer come out. And so that's a way of tuning into my higher self or any guides that might be there for me. So all of those things I would say center around a meditative space for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so interesting.
That was more than you asked for,
Yeah,
Candace.
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
great. No, that's
But
great. I'm just trying to think
explain it.
about because, like, yeah,
I do
no,
five
I was,
minutes every day. Like it's
yeah,
just a
yeah.
little bit more fluid than that. But it ends up only being about 20 minutes a day, the
But I think
whole
that that's so
experience.
helpful. I think
Yeah.
it's so helpful, Tamika. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you there.
No, no.
Because I think that you're right. It sounds to me what you were saying is that, you wake up with, this date to meet with your folks, and then you see what comes in, which I think might bring some relief to a lot of people, that knowing that there's not these like strict and hard lines in order to benefit from some of the things that meditation brings. And so it sounds like to me that you've really kind of shaped your meditative your meditative practice based on your experiences, and being able to pull in those guides, and being able to talk to your like higher self and everything. And so interesting. Obviously, just with life in general flowing in and out, um, do you find yourself sometimes like when would you say that you find that you're meditating more, or that you're needing those answers or things to be downloaded or come in for you, and does it change with what's going on in your life? Like you said, it could change tomorrow, but I'm wondering more deeply just in terms of like what's actually happening in your life, like during times of stress or overwhelm. How is your meditative practice in relation to those kinds of things? It's kind of a loaded question again.
No, not loaded at all. It's
Yeah.
perfect. I would say I meditate more when I have stressful things going on. So I will spend more time in that space. Sometimes it's out of necessity. So for me, if I'm getting off track, like if let's say I'm being irritable with people that I love, if I'm, rushing through things and not paying enough attention, if I'm finding myself doubting myself, criticizing myself, really questioning my value, which I can go into that just like anybody else
Mhm.
can. When I have those moments, I know that the medicine is there. that's where the medicine is. Cause I'm, I obviously this meat suit, I'm walking around in a body, but um, I know 100% sure, I am 100,000% sure that doesn't exist 100,000%. I'm 100% sure that I am more than just this human personality. I know that I'm connected to something bigger, and that when I cease to exist in this form, I will go on in another form, and there that there is a way to access some of that information that would be available to me in between incarnation, if you will. I know that. I know I'm more than that. And so, but I can forget very easily that I'm more than that. So, and I don't mean this in a like boastful way. I know that you're more than that. I know that all of us are, every single person. And I think when any of us forget our light, that's always there. For me, meditation is a gateway to it, because if I wasn't able to slow down my mind and sit with myself, then I wouldn't be able to have those whispered out loud conversations with my higher self and my guides. And I say out loud because I think if anyone's, thinking about having a practice like that, or maybe they already do, when you cut through all the mental BS in the mind, like there's so much chatter in our minds, right? It's like a squirrel or a hamster on a wheel, like 2,700 thoughts every half hour. When you cut through that, you can, like, instead of like thinking that in your head, you can get so distracted in your head and your thoughts can be layered. But if you speak it out loud, it's using your voice to say what you want to ask, or say what you want to say. And it could be as simple as, I'm struggling with the weight from the holidays, or I'm struggling with, some people might say, I'm struggling with finances, or I'm struggling with whatever. And like, can you guide me? Or I'd like help with this, like direct me in the direction that I need to go in. So I think it's really kind of an old way of thinking of prayer as petitionary, like, please give me this. But asking for help and asking for it out loud to your guides and those who are here to support you is a whole different thing. It's very evolved. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think we do have to ask, and to speak it out loud is taking that meditation space, which is obviously very quiet, and putting words and voice to it, to then close your eyes and see if there's answers that come.
Well, it certainly seems that you're connected to your guides, and that like I'm curious about how you would get such guides. So I'm thinking that there's probably folks out there that are like, she has guides. What do these guides look like? Or how did she? You said that you were very spiritual at a young age, and so I know I have my own guides as well, but I've come about those on my own path. And so I'm curious, how did you reel in your team? And are there guides that you talk to more frequently, or are they all kind of there cheering you on and offering?
Yeah, I would say I'm not someone that's like, oh, this is my guide, Bob, and this is my guide, like Denora. Like, I'm not, I don't necessarily have guides in that way, but I've always kind of, I think, believed that that is something that every human is born with, some guides that are watching out for them in the unseen realm, and supporting them, and helping them remember as much as they want to and can remember of who they really are, which is divine light, magnificent creator being. Like, that's who we all are. So I think it's the knowing that I have them, and the confidence that I know that they're there, allows me not to be having this conversation of these don't exist, But I
Mhm.
certainly have had like past life regression. I've had meditations. I've had automatic writing where guides have come forward and, named themselves to me. But not everybody will have that experience, and I don't think people need to necessarily if they don't, if they're not drawn to that. But I don't know. What did you find, Candace? Like, did it just come in when it needed to come in? Like you said, you're aware of your guides and you've had connections to them through specific ways. How did it work for you?
Yeah. So I think for me, and this is very interesting too, because I think that you're saying, yeah, like you didn't have somebody named Bob that's right there beside you. I more or less, I through different experiences, um, were told like that, there is a First Nations chief, or there is a like a shaman, or I've been given examples of maybe archetypes and different things that are behind me, and either they've clicked or they haven't. And I think maybe, and who knows, I've grabbed onto the ones where I'm like, yeah, like I kind of see some of that coming through sometimes, right? That person is coming through. Or more specifically, something that I connect to a lot is my power animal that I've been gifted through journeying. And so mine is a pickerel of all things, which is kind of funny. But this fish, I call upon
I
this
love
pickerel
it.
fish all the time, and just harness some of the energy that fish can bring in terms of being able to swim and flow through things, or yeah, just guide me through different events, or experiences that I'm having, or issues, or things that I'm looking to deal with as well. So I think I'm very similar to you, Tamika, in the fact that I have a team that I feel like is there, and I feel like there's light, and there's more to it, but then I can definitely harness and pull in on certain um, archetypes or guides that I feel like could help me in certain situations. And so I found that to be very powerful in navigating lots of different life experiences. Yeah.
I love that. That is so
Yeah.
beautiful. That's so beautifully said. And it makes it almost in a way, well, obviously you've had power animal journeys, but you're also connected to a lot of animals or birds in nature. Like I know you're an eagle person. You have a lot of connection to different animals in nature too, or beings in nature, like in the natural world. And a
Hmm.
lot of people probably don't even realize that if they have an animal coming up all the time for them, and that it gives them that peace and it resets them, that is a guide, that like that archetype is a guide for them.
Right. And so I think that it's just so interesting because I feel very fortunate, and I'm grateful that I have these tools to look back on, and people, and these guides to help me through. And I often think about folks that don't have these belief systems in place, and don't have these practices to kind of fall back on. And so um, I think that perhaps it's like getting caught in the doings and the hamster wheel of life, daily life, and all of that stuff, right? And so, um, how would you like? Perhaps there's going to be somebody out there listening to this podcast that, obviously is probably spiritual, but maybe doesn't feel that they've connected with these kinds of alternative beings or spirits or guides, and so we've talked about the power animal journey. Um, how else could somebody, do you think, get involved or get in touch with their guides?
Yeah, it's true that a lot of people are disconnected, and I just want to say about that before I answer your question that
Hmm.
that's purposeful. I mean, I think I really, I like to believe that the whole world is good, but there's so much evidence and research that um, it is very conclusive that we are not alone, and there is more going on in the energetic realm than we know. And yet
Hmm.
that's been hidden from us, right? None of us really grew up with that on the radio. Maybe we watched Bewitched on TV as a child, or something but it was all fantasy. It wasn't real, and it actually is real. And so all of that is very real and very researched, and there's data to support that. So I just want to like say that no one can be blamed that they, trust what they're in, because when you talk about different cultures, if they grow up with understanding from birth that there's more, and there's a community of people, but there's also a community of spiritual guides and support, then they're obviously going to it's going to be easier to adopt that. But when you kind of always hear that it's woo woo out there, I think it's been hidden from us, is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, that wasn't your question. But it does make us understand people. Maybe certain people would have gone for it if it was more sanctioned, you know what I mean, in the culture. But then other people, I think they're just not meant, that's not their path when they're here. Like maybe the 3D, the sort of like the physical material world is where they're meant to more play in that sandbox. And there's nothing less than in that sandbox, right? Like it's just as valuable a path, if that makes sense. Like even if they're not connecting, does that make sense?
Totally.
But then your question, what was your question? Those are the preamble answers to your question. What
How
was your
can
question?
people like connect, I think,
Oh,
to
yeah.
their spirit guides, or how can they harness maybe some of these people to be in their back corner, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, I think each person is going to be, I would take the thing that you're drawn to and go deeper into that. Like it might be yoga. And I think yoga, especially certain types of yoga that really focus on breath, which is life force and prana, or if you're really drawn to meditation, but you haven't tried it yet, but you've always wanted to, then maybe that's where you start. You go in there in that and you ask. That's the other thing people can do. Every single person listening to this can do this right now and say, I would say it out loud. You don't need to say it in public or on your street, but I would say it out loud. Like I'm open to connecting in a deeper way with my guides in this lifetime, and show me a sign that I can trust. Show me the pathway forward. And then who knows, maybe a course comes up, or you meet somebody that you connect with and they're really in tune with that and they want to connect with you in a deeper way. And so then it's just like remembering that you asked the question and knowing that you can trust the answer when it shows up.
That's beautiful. I think what I really grabbed onto there was just being open and, asking and hoping to receive. And so I think that it's interesting because a lot of the times it's in these moments of desperation when we've hit rock bottom that we're looking to receive something or change or for something else to come our way. And so, I think that sometimes comes with a lot of heartache, loneliness, self-doubt. And so do you see this in your therapeutic practice? How can you make this connection, or do you make this connection when we're talking about here all of these like spirit guides and more spiritual work? How do you relate? Like, are you open to sharing that stuff with clients or people in your therapeutic practice, or are you seeing a lack thereof, these kinds of things, and have it as an offering? Or how does that work? Because it's so interesting to me, like all of these different fields that you work in and how they all converge into everything that you offer people, your wisdom and all that stuff. It's not just all that stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Every person that I support as a therapist is different. And so in getting to know them, if they're opening that door, I will walk through it. And if they're not opening that door, then I might, because I feel like my guides are working with them too. And I definitely say prayers. I meditate for people that I'm working with, like beforehand, especially if they're in struggling. I definitely sort of try to call in more supports for them too. And so if I get an impulse, let's say it's somebody that door doesn't seem open, but if I have that like come in to my mind, and you, sometimes I'll hesitate and say, oh, I don't want them, to think that this is so weird and out there what I'm saying. But then if it comes into my mind again, then I know that it's like, it's tapping on my shoulder from somewhere. And so I will broach the question, or I will say, well, like, what do you think of this? And I'll ask them, like, what are your beliefs on this? And then go from there. And if people, some people just really aren't open, and they will be clear about that they're not open to those other energies. I also make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes I'll say something like, this, I wonder if this would help. And they'll be like, no, that's not going to help. So then I'll just go in a different direction.
Right.
As a therapist, there's no handbook to say, okay, well, there is a lot of handbooks, but you never know what is exactly going to support someone, especially when you're first working with them and don't know them as well.
Right. And
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay, so you do a lot of just trusting in your own processes, obviously, and seeing what comes up. And if it's a repeated pattern, knowing that that's happening for a reason. So interesting. When you are at when you're at a spot again, in times of like overwhelm, um, you turn to your guides. Can you give us like a more of a tangible, like a more of an example of when this has happened in your life, and how you know that your guides or meditation or this path has really worked for you? Have you seen a direct correlation? Been like, okay, I 100% know that this is now the answer, that this is the path that I must take.
Yes. I mean, life is messy. So my life is just as messy as probably every person's listening to this podcast. So there's no like special knowledge that I have that somebody else doesn't have. But I do ask, like, I think back to a time, this just popped into my mind. So I'm going to trust that this is the story to tell.
If you already have a 500-hour YTT, we have a 1,000-hour yoga training that you can take from anywhere in the world. DevaTree has a 5-star reputation and is known for creating programs that focus on student self-determination, self-compassion, and embracing your radical uniqueness. Talk to us about charting your unique path forward. We'd love to have you join our incredible community.
I was thinking about my father and kind of one of the messes that he left when he died.
Mm-hmm.
And how myself and others are attempting in the best way we all know how to clean that mess up. And I was mad at him. He's dead. He's not here anymore. But I was mad at him, and I was like, why did you do this? And like, I know that you're in the light now, and I know how special you are and were. And I have this deep closeness with my dad now in that realm. But at that day, at that time, I was really mad about it. And I was having a moment. And then I'm like, I don't even know if you're with me at all. Are you even with me? Like, are you even paying attention? Like, are you here guiding myself and all of us that are struggling with this? Are you guiding all of us? Just give me a sign. And then I forgot all about it. Went on with my day, did all the things. Life got busy. At the last minute, there's this little tiny grocery store near our house. I ran out to get something to make for dinner, and I walked into that place, and they were playing one of his favorite songs. And it's an odd song because it's old, he was 89 when he died. So like, this is an old song. And so it was so out of context, because this place, I've been in this little grocery store a zillion times, and they don't play music like that. So as soon as I walked in, I started crying because it was so specific to him. And yeah, it makes me a little emotional just thinking about him. And I'm like, okay, I got you. That like could not have been clearer. That could not have been clearer. So my dad, is one of my guides, and there are others too, but that's an example that I can think of recently, or in the last year anyway.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful story about your experience with your dad and this world of signs and symbols. And I obviously have such a passion for that. And maybe you'll be willing to share the song that came through. I would love to put that in the show notes. But just thinking about this idea of everyone having messy lives, and I don't know if you ever like, I had an aha moment where you realize that every family has stuff and that everyone's got, baggage and things going on. But we always tend to paint other people's lives in such a picture that they're doing so well, or they're, so successful, or how do they do it? And I could just never do that. Or, you know what I mean? There's like this piece of observing someone else's success allows or brings also in, I guess it depends on where you're at in your journey, but some negative self-talk or self-doubt. I'm thinking specifically things like imposter syndrome, where you just don't feel that you're worthy, or that you don't feel like you can be the thing that you're setting out to do. And so I'm just thinking about, oh, sorry about that. I'm just thinking about how do you tell yourself that you're doing a good job? How do you motivate yourself to continue on the path to which is serving the highest good, or that is the path that you're supposed to be on? I think that that's really like with how to separate all of the negative self-talk and the self-doubt. How do you do that, Tamika? Because I think a lot of people, and this is again coming from what I think, look to you as such a successful person in terms of being an author to a #1 best-selling book. You've ran a yoga school. You've led training courses, all sorts of things. And so you say that you're messy and all of that stuff. And I just want to get a little bit of a glimpse of like, how do you separate that from
Just
what
how
you're
messy I
showing?
am.
Yeah.
You want to know just a little glimpse of how messy I am? Well, I don't know. I think that it's just what is that quote? You miss all the shots you don't take. And I just have, and not because I've had more confidence. I have to say that I have in my life chosen to step forward confidently, even if my boots are shaking inside. And I learned that a long time ago. I think it was like, and when I was in college, I remember doing my first presentation in college and I was terrified. And I saw this book that said, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I thought, oh my God, I just have to, and then fake it till you make it. Both of those help me. And so I don't know what I think about that fake it till you make it, but I mean, because sometimes we just have to get vulnerable, but also it helped me in that I don't have to feel perfectly confident to step forward. I don't have to feel perfectly capable to step forward. But if I don't try and step forward, then that opportunity is lost. And so I think talking to myself is probably the biggest thing. Like even now, back in 2023, like a few months ago, I began a new position at a university. I've always been loved working in those spaces, and field education is one of my specialties. And so I'm managing a new team now, and I had so much fear going into that. I kind of put myself out there to do this, but then once I got it, I was kind of like, what? Like, how am I supposed to do this? Like, and of course I am capable. I have the experience and the background and the education to do it. But there's that part of, I think all of us, it's like, who do I think I am? I'm not, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not smart enough? What if whatever, all the what ifs. And so I think one of the things that excites me the most about life is that idea of trying something that you're afraid to do, feeling the fear and doing it anyway and seeing what can happen. And it's amazing what can happen. It's not all perfect, but it's amazing the people you can meet, the things you can see, the things you can learn, the things you can do. Even, a couple days a week, I drive into downtown Toronto, and I'm a country girl at heart all the way. I mean, I lived on Salt Spring Island for 4 years. There was no traffic lights there. I grew up in a small town that had, I think, no traffic lights as well. Driving to London, Ontario was our big outing. So
Right.
now I'm driving. I could not be closer to the thick of the heart of the core of downtown Toronto. And I'm driving there a couple times a week on my own, because Carolyn used to always be my, I only went to downtown Toronto with her. I had no interest in that part of the whole thing. But that was so scary for me the first month. And honestly, Candace, I have developed a new skill. I can drive in the thick of the city. I still get anxious sometimes, but I can do it. And it still shocks me that I'm saying this to you, because now at first I couldn't listen to podcasts. I couldn't listen to music. I was too stressed, and I'm okay now, but that's just taking a risk. And, I have taken a lot of risks in my life. Some of them have worked out. Some of them have not worked out, but, and maybe let's say I take less risks as I get older, just because, I don't know, just don't need to as much. But I'm really excited about the fact that we can embrace that part of ourselves that feels shaky and like an imposter and like not confident, and just try, like, do it anyway. Like, I love that. I love that. That first presentation that I did went fine. I got a great mark on it, but they told me I didn't smile. That I didn't smile once through it. I was terrified. But it totally was feel the fear and fake it. Just pretend that you're not afraid. You just got to pretend you're not afraid.
Well, from one country girl to another, you're giving me faith that one day I'll be comfortable driving in downtown Toronto. I don't know, but oh my gosh, that's so amazing, Tamika. And I want to thank you for offering all of your insights and wisdom on meditation and your spiritual path, and getting out of that space of self-doubt and like unworthiness and negative talk. Sharing some of these stories that you have really put it into actuality that everyone can do this and ride this wave of life, right? There's definitely ups and downs, and it kind of brings in this awareness that everybody's kind of doing it too, right? Everyone is riding it out. Like, no one really knows all the answers, and even the most professional folks still get shaky knees sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you're a great example. You're welcome. And you're a great example doing this podcast, Candace, and taking steps into the unknown and putting your voice into the world and putting your wisdom and your inquisitive nature and your positivity, because you are a beacon of light. I'm so grateful to know you and to work with you. And it's such an honor that you're doing this Love Who You Are podcast for DevaTree, and on behalf of our community and beyond. You're incredible. So you're doing that exact thing. Just stepping
Thanks so
in.
much, Tamika. Thank you so much. All the love
Thank
to
you.
you. Yay, you made it to the end of the Love Who You Are podcast. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave a review, or text a friend and share the love. These small actions make a big difference in this realm, and we thank you. And we have a present for you, a guide to creating and sustaining a home practice. In this free video, 7 experienced wellness leaders share what it takes to overcome the struggle of creating a home practice in anything: yoga, meditation, journaling, or whatever you'd love to do more of. You don't want to miss the wisdom of these incredible women. You'll find your free gift at DevaTree.com. That's DevaTree.com. We'll see you next time, and know that you are loved.